It's not quite past, but I thought we'll get kicked off as we seem to have a full house. Hello and welcome, and thank you for attending this presentation. My name's Mike Baker. I work for Cornerstone OnDemand. For those who may not know who Cornerstone are, we're one of the leading SaaS software vendors for integrated talent management and learning in the industry. We're on stand 7. You can't miss it. It's got a life-size picture of me on the stand. For some reason, when I see marketing, I'll have a word with them. Today, what I'm going to talk to you about is learning in a social world, but moreover, learning in the digital space and the Web 2.0 world that we live in today. So I'm going to try and cover these three sort of high-level agenda points. So social and Web 2.0 and the impact that that's having in society, in business today. How that fits in with building a culture of continuous learning within your organization, as well as some tips and tricks and ideas for implementing a social strategy around learning within your business. So today, we really live in a social, on-demand world. People expect information to be fast, they expect it to be relevant, at their fingertips, on demand. This is the world that we all now find ourselves living in, where the information that we want, where we're looking to gain knowledge or find information out is there and it's ready. So it's not so much having a strategy for social learning or a social learning platform, but it's more a strategy for learning within this social on-demand world that we're living in. So in case anyone was in any doubt, social has now become the primary form of communication on the internet today. It's surpassed SMS, it's surpassed email, and it's growing ever more. This is the way that people want to communicate. They learn about their environment from this medium. So from a business perspective, you need to take that into account when you're thinking about learning and development and how people want to communicate and be communicated to. So why are people using Web 2.0 and social today? Well, this is a chart from a company called eConsultancy, who are a respected digital consulting firm in the UK. And what it really shows is that people are looking to social media and the web for ideas and inspiration, product reviews, opinion, news and information, inspiration. So in other words, learning. It's where people are going to do their learning and gain their knowledge today. So within that context, when you consider that social is a platform for sharing knowledge, ideas, and learning is really about gaining that knowledge and expanding your base of ideas, the two become very happy bedfellows. They become synonymous with one another. But what impact is it actually having in business today? And if you look at Burson & Associates, who put together these statistics, companies who use Web 2.0 tools are way ahead in terms of best-of-class performance and engagement. And the reason they're ahead of engagement is because it's how people want to communicate. They're more engaged, it's more relevant. And yet only 27% of companies are using a social platform on their intranet in some fashion. So adoption is still low, despite the fact that statistically, you're going to be improving the results of your company, more engaged with your learning audience from using it. The last statistic is what I think is most interesting to me, which is nearly 40% of your emerging workforce, your millennials, your Generation Y, whatever you want to call them, would consider leaving if they weren't able to access Facebook or YouTube. And you might think, well, so what? Because I don't want them spending time on Facebook and YouTube when they're in the office. But the important thing that this statistic tells me is that emerging workforce, your talent of the future, expects a social experience. They want to be able to interact. Now, if you can't do it on Facebook or YouTube, then what environment are you giving them? What platform are you giving them to learn and communicate with their colleagues internally? So Virgin Media are a client of Cornerstone's, and as a case study to wrap some of those statistics together, what they've done with social media is use it as a tool to promote and engage their learning audience as they move from traditional instructor-led training to e-learning strategy. So Virgin Media deliver training across their entire organization. They deliver up to full degrees and diplomas through the Virgin Media University. Traditionally, they've done that with instructor-led training, but they wanted to look at how they could make that more relevant, more on demand. So they moved to an e-learning strategy, but then the struggle that they had then was, how do they promote that? How do they get their audience engaged to do that? So they put a social media platform in place to socialize that experience, to capture feedback on the training courses, to feed that back in to make them more relevant. They were able to promote and market the change that they were experiencing with this new way of learning. And in so doing, they were able to drive up adoption and by increasing relevance of the content, and save about £100,000 in traditional instructor-led training in the process. So you can see this isn't all just about having a social media, let's have a social platform and get everyone on it. It's about using it where it makes sense to either promote or engage your audience. So ultimately what that means is you've got a more energized workforce. They feel as though they've got more input into the content that they're seeing. It's more relevant for them. They can discuss, they can feed back onto the L&D departments about what content worked and what didn't, and they can do that in real time. You can capture that conversation and you can drive your learning program forward. But how do you do that? Where does social fit within a continuous learning environment? Standard Dilbert slide, every good presentation should have one. Now, what this represents really is the consumerization of IT within the workforce today. So today it's probable that most people in this room have better technology at home than they have in the workforce. They've all got access to the latest smartphones, they've got top spec laptops, super fast broadband, they've got iPads and tablets. And so they're used to working with that best-of-breed technology, but it also comes to a point where they're used to accessing best-of-breed applications as well. So best-of-breed cloud applications like Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, where it's an intuitive interface, they're able to access information quickly in the time that suits them. But it also means that now it's broken down the borders of the workplace. So people don't have to be in the office anymore in order to do their job. They can log on from home using their Mac computer or whatever it might be and do their job from there. So the challenge for learners is how do you reach out to that workforce? Using a Burson slide again here, but to me, social media is not a panacea. It is not something that's going to suddenly invigorate your workforce on its own. To me, social media and Web 2.0 is really part of a continuous learning program. So if you look at this and you look at a traditional training program where you had a training event, retention increased over time and then dipped away. With a continuous learning program, you're really looking at bringing together all the elements of Web 2.0, blending that with traditional approaches to learning to create a more continuous learning experience, greater knowledge, greater engagement. So in this case, pre-boarding, you may be serving job aids via video perhaps, or giving access to an internal social platform for people to access before they've even joined the company, providing e-learning courses. Coaching and mentoring is increasingly being done by video, especially when we talk about a remote workforce. Tying that learning into career curriculum and career development so that it becomes relevant for the user. And then creating communities of practice, getting the people together who are subject matter experts within your organization to help build content and to help make that more relevant for the learner, and then making it on demand and accessible everywhere via mobile learning. So you can see through this, it's not about having a one-size-fits-all approach to social media, but where it fits into a continuous learning program within your organization. So I spoke about this already, the fact that we now have a borderless workplace. More and more, your colleagues are not going to be sitting across the desk from you. They may not even be in the same office. They may not even be in the same country. So that water cooler moment, that informal learning that used to happen around the water cooler or across the desk or an overheard conversation is becoming fewer and fewer or less and less. So within that borderless workplace, technology really becomes the enabler for people to be able to communicate and share ideas and share knowledge. So how do you provide that continuous learning experience that I just talked about when you have this borderless workplace? Well, one of the ways of using social media in this instance is to create those communities of best practice. It's about connecting people via technology and via subject matter experts so that they can tap into the knowledge that they would have otherwise got informally in a traditional working environment. crowdsourcing is a great way of doing this, and it relates to more than one way of thinking about crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing, traditionally, if you like, is about the voice of the consumer in the marketplace. But when you put that into a learning perspective, there's a number of different things that means to you. One is user-generated content. And obviously the cost of content and the cost to your business of content is increasing. How can you make that content more relevant? How can you create it more cheaply? Now, obviously, getting user-generated content can be a real nightmare and a headache to manage. But if you're capturing that conversation via a social platform or something like that, you're able to start generating content that's more relevant to the people who want to use it, and then feed that back into your audience in a very cost-effective manner. Another way to think about crowdsourcing is how to address knowledge gaps in your business without expending a lot of money on training. So the role of L&D in that instance could be to source skills and knowledge outside of your organization. At Cornerstone, we work with a partner of ours who develops bespoke software applications, and they have a team of developers. But every now and then they'll come up against a particular problem that they either don't have the bandwidth to deal with or the skills to deal with. So what they've done is they've created a community of best practice of developers that are external to their company, and they can go out to we've got this particular curly problem, we'd like some ideas on how to fix it. They can put in place incentives, competitions and prizes, and then those development teams come back with solutions which they are then able to deploy. So if you think about that in an internal perspective and using the same sort of incentives and the same sort of crowdsourcing to address those knowledge gaps, it gives you a very cost-effective way of managing your learning. Possibly one of the most important things about bringing social into an L&D environment is the fact that you can measure everything and you become a lot more efficient. So you can start to build repositories of best practice and of knowledge. One of the examples I used when I talk about this was at a previous company of mine. I had a team of engineers, and every now and then they'd come up against a problem with a client that they couldn't solve. And what would happen is an email would go around to the entire organization saying, has anyone come up against this problem before for this particular customer? And everyone would respond, and the problem would be solved. A lot of email traffic, but it worked. The problem would be that 3 months from now we'd have a new starter, and they'd come up against the same problem, and they'd send another email around to everybody. So what we did was we put a social platform in place to be able to capture that conversation, so that before the email went round to every man and his dog in the company, they were able to go on there and search for the specific issue that they were trying to solve, therefore increasing the knowledge of that engineer, increasing the efficiency and time to be able to deliver that resolution to the client. So using social media in that sense becomes a very powerful tool for knowledge management and document repository. So implementing social media, the biggest barrier that I see when we're talking to customers about implementing social media is the fear of change. It's the fact that it's I've got to blanket adopt this across my entire organization. Nobody's going to use it. Is it really here to stay? Is it is it the right way for people to learn? Lots of interesting arguments around that. But I think that the important thing is not to blanket adopt or approach, and to recognise that whether we like it or not, this is the way that people are learning today. And I use an example again here of the traditional approach to purchasing something. So if I was going to go purchase a TV 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, I would go into a store, I'd talk to the sales rep, I'd get all the information about the particular models of TV he had on display. That would be my traditional instructor-led training or knowledge gathering, if you like, about that particular TV. I'd then make my decision, and I'd either buy or not buy that TV. Today, before I walk into that store, I'm going to go on to Which Magazine online and have a look at what they think the best TV is. I'm then going to go into the store. I'm going to have my traditional training approach, if you like, with the salesperson. As I walk out of the store, I'm going to flip open my I don't flip them anymore, do you? But I would open up my smartphone and I would look on Twitter to see if anybody was negatively tweeting about that particular manufacturer's customer service. And then when I got home, I might speak to my friends on Facebook and say, hey, has anyone heard anything about the latest Panasonic TV? I'm thinking of buying one. So you can see that as a result of that, I'm more informed when I get to the sales rep because I've already looked at it, and I'm certainly way more informed by the time I make my buying decision because I've had multiple touch points in that knowledge gathering exercise, that continuous learning, if you like, by using all the elements available to me as a learner in this case. So it's not so much a case of whether you want to change or not. It's a case of this is happening and how are you going to implement it within your organization effectively. This is a quote from a guy called Arthur Nielsen of Nielsen Market Research talking about whether companies should adopt the web several years ago now and whether or not that was worthwhile. And essentially what he's saying is that it's better to do something than nothing. And that doesn't mean you have to do it all at once, but look, start small, see what works. Because as the statistics from Burson showed earlier, your competitors are doing this. Your workforce is looking to go to somewhere where they get a social experience. Your competitors are getting an advantage from doing it. They're being analytically and socially competitive in this space. So by sitting there and doing nothing, you're only really slowing yourself down. So I've touched on a few of these pointers already, and I'm flying through this material. But some ideas from using social: don't blanket adopt or reject. Look to where it's going to complement what you're doing today. Look at where specific pilot groups will be used or where you can measure success. Virgin Media is another example of where they've done that very effectively. They have a situation where they've got lots of stores, and some stores perform better than others on Sunday. Now, the reason for that is because of the different approaches that the store managers are taking in how they promote and sell their products on that particular day. So again, traditionally what they would have done is they brought all those store managers in on an off-site, taken them out of the business for a day, had a brainstorming session, hoped some of it stuck, hoped they went away and implemented those changes. And that would have worked to a point. What Virgin decided to do was set up a small pilot group using social media as a learning platform with that very specific target in mind of improving sales on a Sunday in their stores. And they created a community of best practice with those Sunday store managers where they're able to share and swap ideas and discuss the relevant pros and cons of each of those ideas. So you can see that by just using it in a small pilot group, you can have a big impact on improving revenue, in this case for Virgin Media in those stores, without having to throw social media out to the entire workforce. Be realistic about the benefits. Have a goal in mind. Have an idea about what you're trying to achieve when you implement social as part of your learning platform, or where you develop Web 2.0 as part of your learning platform. And be smart about where it's going to be useful. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about technographics and demographics within your organization. Think about where people are most likely going to be able to access and use social media and what sort of people they are and how they're going to get the most out of it. This is one of my favorite Douglas Adams quotes from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Set of rules that anything that was in the world when you were born is normal and natural. Anything prevented between you and your 15 and 35 is new and revolutionary and exciting, and you'll probably get a job in it. And anything created after you or invented after you're 35 is against the law of nature and should be shunned and away from. But I think this is kind of misleading to some extent. It's funny, but it's kind of misleading. In one sense, it's true, because you do need to understand the demographic and the uptake that you're going to get from social within your organization. But at the same time, the over 55 group within Facebook is the fastest growing sector in Facebook population. So it's not just a case of if you're over 35 or over 45, you're not going to adopt digital and social media. It's about understanding where people are in your organization. Are they blog writers? Are they blog contributors? Are they sort of people who just put like on Facebook? Are they the sort of people who are going to really drive conversations forward? They may be young and in that emerging workforce, but perhaps they're in a blue-collar environment where they don't have access to their own PCs. There's any number of factors which could affect that technographic of your organization, and understanding that will help you identify where you want to target social media as an element to your blended learning program. Understand where your employees congregate and what is the most effective channel to communicate with them. So where do they go today? When people turn on their computer in the morning, where do they first go? Do they go to the intranet? Are they going into their LMS? We'd like to think so, but perhaps not. Are they going into a CRM? Are they in sales, for example? Because using digital Web 2.0 and social technology gives you an opportunity to target those people through the most effective channel, which is likely to be where they spend most of their time. So an example of that would be sales and marketing, for example, who spend a lot of their time in a CRM. Salesforce would be a good example of that. At Cornerstone, what we've done with Salesforce is integrated with them, and this is just an example, obviously, of a native application. So when a salesperson moves an opportunity from prospect to contracts received, a piece of e-learning will pop up on their screen and say, these are the things that you should do next. So you're effectively targeting that person through using Web 2.0 and social technologies where they're going to see it. You're not relying on them logging into their LMS, which they may only do for compliance reasons. So you're actually actively promoting and targeting it, which is going to increase adoption, improve ROI, improve relevancy, all of those good things that we're trying to achieve. Measurement, and we talked a little bit about this when I was talking about repositories, but measuring, digital offers an opportunity to measure like you've never been able to measure before. And the whole concept of big data is a big topic at the moment and a whole new presentation topic, if you like. But the amount of data points you're able to collect from the different conversations that are happening around your business, if you have them in a social platform that you can control and monitor, is enormous. In 2009, we hit a watershed mark in society, which was that we collected more data in 2009 than we collected in the entire combined years of mankind up to that point. And that's purely because of the amount of touch points that digital and social media has brought into the world that we live in. So measuring what's successful, what content works, what doesn't, where you had good adoption, where you didn't, using it as a survey tool, using social media to start conversations around the learning event that happened, and why was it good and why was it not good, how you can improve that, in continually improving relevancy in the content that you're delivering to your workforce as a result. So I've flown through this very quickly, and we've got plenty of time for questions, but just some takeaways. I think all training and learning and development should have a social component to it. That doesn't mean that it has to be the only component you use or the only delivery mechanism that you have. Social media should form part of a blended or continuous learning approach so that you're able to use it where it's most effective to either drive adoption, to communicate or to capture information, or to promote changes that you're making in your learning and development environment. It's affecting all elements of recruitment to talent and learning today. It is happening. It's part of the business world that we live in at the moment. So if you're not making the best use of it, then either your employee base will go to somewhere where they can make the best use of it, or you're missing a trick and you're becoming less competitive in the war on talent, the war on knowledge, and the efficiency of your workforce. And as I said, it can be a platform. You can drive elements of your learning strategy directly from social, as I used with that Virgin Media example earlier, or you can have it as a component as part of a wider learning strategy. So that ends the presentation. It was very quick. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Any questions? No? Thank you. You've been a great audience. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you'd like to speak to me, I'll be on stand 7. Thanks very much.